Good morning, afternoon and evening, my crazies. My name's Angela, I'm the Crazy Poppy Lady, and welcome back to today's tutorial. Now this one is for the Lavender Posy Cup Coaster. As you can see here, we've got it tied up pretty so that it can be given as a gift, and this is what it looks like once it's unravelled. Right, so come on, get ready to grab your supplies and let's get going. Right, so let's get this started. What you are going to need today is a 4mm hook. Oh, it's getting worn out, that one. Darning needle. I'm keeping them in the case so I don't lose them. If you wish, a stitch marker or two. But I prefer for this pattern to use a piece of scrap yarn. I'll grab that in a minute. You're going to need the brown for the centre. I've got a large ball here because I'm just working it out of the ball, and a small amount of scrap purple and a small amount of the scrap green. Okay, you don't need a great deal of the green at all. Okay, so it's a really cool project for using up your scrap yarns. All the yarn I'm using today, of course, is Signet Pato Everyday a DK. It is a DK a weight yarn, and you get 270 meters per 100 grams, and it is 100% acrylic and machine washable. Now, of course, you can choose to use any yarns that you have in your scrap basket. I would suggest cotton if you are planning to use this as a placemat as such. Just in case somebody decides they're going to have a hot drink on there. Right, so let's grab our hook, let's grab our brown yarn and get ready to go. First of all, we are going to actually make a magic ring. If you don't know how to do the magic ring, don't panic, there's lots of different methods to do it, and if you really prefer not to, of course you can do the chain 4 slip stitch to join method as well. This is just a method that I prefer to work. So for me, I wrap my yarn round twice because I am doing a double magic ring. I find this is a lot more secure than the standard one wrap. I'm going to place my hook underneath the first 2 strands, picking up the third, and pull that through, let it run loose. I'm going to twist to the back and pick up that same strand again, pop it on my hook. Then of course as I come forward I'm twisting it, so that creates the first 2 loops. Then hook over and pull that through the 2 loops. Okay, so now you've got your magic double ring, or your double magic ring, depending on which way around you want the words today. Right, now into this ring, or should I say working over both sections of this, we are going to place in 6 single crochets. Okay, once you've done that, it's time to close up your loop. So you're going to pull up your working yarn so it doesn't slide out. We are then going to go back to the beginning of our ring where the knot is, and very carefully and slowly pull on the tail. This will mean that one of the 2 strands is going to become tight. When you get to that point, you know that you now need to take that tightened strand and pull it away from the knot. That closes up the other ring. Okay, if you pull them both, if you just pull this, then you are going to get bunching of both of the strands and tangles and stuff. So this is the best way I've found to close them up. Because then once you've pulled that other strand through, you then grab your tail and you pull, and it gives you your nice closed circle. Right, so now you've closed up, what you're going to do is pop your loop back on your hook and cinch it tight. We're going to grab either a stitch marker or a scrap of yarn, and I'm going to do the scrap of yarn method and pop that in there. Okay, so I'm just popping it into the gap between the last and the first stitch. Now we're not going to bother slip stitching at this point into this first stitch. We are going to work directly into it with our next single crochet. And also what I will be doing at the same time is working over my tail. That way there's going to be no need to sew it in. Okay, so we are popping our hook through that very first stitch. If you're unsure where it is, count back 6 stitches. Okay, then we will pull up and we'll do our single crochet working through that stitch and over the yarn tail. We are going to place 2 stitches in each stitch from the round below, which will bring your stitch count up to 12. Okay, so that's 2 stitches in each stitch. Okay, once you've got your 6, count round, double check you have your 12 stitches. Okay, then we can drop the tail and of course move our yarn up or just flick it over like I've done, making sure you find that very first stitch, which will sometimes be hiding underneath, of course, your yarn tails and stuff. You find that first one, we are going to place a single crochet in there, trying not to pick up the tail. Okay, there we go. Right, so pop your hook through, do a single crochet in that first stitch, and then 2 single crochets in the next, so that is an increase. Okay, and we're going to work that pattern all the way around your circle. So that's a single crochet in the first, an increase, or 2 single crochets into the second, single, increase, single in the next, increase in the next. And we'll keep going until we get to the end of this round. You should end on an increase. So once you're finished, your circle will now look like this. Now for round number 3, our stitch pattern for this one is nice and simple again. But first of all, you want to move your stitch marker up or flick it over. And then we are going to do a single crochet in the next 2 stitches and then an increase. Okay, so single crochet in the first, single crochet in the second, increase in the third, and you're going to repeat that pattern all the way around. So that's single in the first, single crochet in the second, single crochet increase in the third. Single in crochet in the first, single in the second, and increase in the third. As you know, you're going to do that all the way around. You will end with an increase. Okay, so that is the end of the round. Now for round number 3, make sure that you've moved your stitch marker up or over. Ensure you grab that very first placement, and we're going to do a single crochet into the next 3 stitches. So that's a total of a single crochet worked over the next 3 stitches, just like that. And then we're going to add in an increase, which is the 2 stitches in the same spot, and that is our pattern all the way along. So that's single crochet over the next 3 stitches, followed by an increase. And of course you will be ending with an increase. Okay, so that's how it will look at the end of this round. Now it's time for round number 5. Do the same steps as before. Okay, and now we are going to be working a single crochet over the next 4. Okay, so that's 1 single crochet in each of the next 4 stitches, followed by our increase. And you're going to do that all the way around. So that is a single crochet in the next 4 stitches, followed by our increase. And of course when you get to the end, you'll be finishing on an increase. Okay, so once finished, it will look something, it should look like this. Right, so for this next round, we are going to be working a single crochet over the next 5 stitches, followed by an increase. Make sure that you flip over your stitch marker or move it up. Let's get going. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, followed by our increase. Now we're going to repeat that all the way around, and you will end up, of course, hopefully with a increase at the end. Right, so at the end of this round, this is what your circle should now be looking like. Now this is how we start the base, or we complete the base, sorry, for either the lavender or of course the roses. Now it's up to you which method you would now like to carry on with. I will place a timestamp at the bottom in the comments in the video description, that one will say a lavender and the other one will say roses. If you click on either one of those now, it will take you to the section of the video that you would like. Okay, I would appreciate it though if you did watch the video the whole way through. Maybe, I don't know, make up another one of these and then carry on with it with the second part of the video later. But just for reference, I'm going to leave the lavender sitting off to one side here so that I can see which one I'm working on, so it reminds me, because we all know how forgetful I am. Right, so now what we want to do is we have finished this round. We're going to pull up a decent amount of yarn just straight out from the stitch and cut it. Okay, so we need enough there for sewing in. You're going to grab your favourite darning needle, because hey, we've all got a favourite one, haven't we? Pop your yarn in, and then we are going to do an invisible join. Okay, so for this invisible join, what you're going to do is you're going to take your needle, you're going to place it under both parts of the next stitch. Oh, sorry, let me bring that up. So you're going to place it through there, pull your yarn through, straighten it up a little bit so you can see where you're going. Then we are going to go back down through the last stitch. Okay, so that will give you a really nice edge. Once you've given it a little wiggle, little tug, made sure it's the same tension on it. See, it's not noticeable. Normally it's not noticeable. Okay, it's noticeable today because Angie hasn't done it properly. No, I have done it properly, it's just my hands aren't working. Right, and then it's a case of sewing in your ends and hiding them so you can't see them. Now everybody of course hides their ends in differently, and the choice of how you do it and where you're placing them is entirely up to you. And of course you don't have to finish with the same method I did. You can use any method you like. I just prefer this one because I feel like I'm hiding it a little bit better. Once you've had enough of hiding your ends, come off. Okay, and then move on to our centre one. Now remember, it's already gone round once, twice, 3 times, depending on how many you did. Okay, and you could have in theory carried on working over this as you went round and round on your rounds. Right, right, so that's it, that's finished, and that's how it ends up. And this bottom corner where the join is will look a lot neater with the next round added in. So now it's time to do the small amount of greenery here, which also is our base for our lavenders. So you're going to grab your yarn, take in the green, pop a slip knot on your hook. Okay, and now we are going to start working. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a standing double crochet, which basically means you pretend that your yarn's already joined. So we're going to hook over, pop our hook through any stitch we fancy, hook over, pull up, hook over, pull through 2, hook over and pull through 2. Okay, so that's our very first stitch complete. Then we are going to chain 1 and place another double crochet into the same place. Okay, so it will look like that hopefully once you're finished. Now we are going to chain 2 and we are going to skip 2, and then we are going to place another V-stitch, which is the double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, all into the same stitch. Okay, so it will look like that. Then again we chain 2, skip 2, and into that third stitch we place another V-stitch. So that's double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Okay, and you're going to keep going with that pattern all of the way around. So I'll do it a couple more times with you, and then I'm going to do the rest off camera. So that's chain 2, skip 2 into the 3rd, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, all into the same stitch. Okay, now it's time to freeze the video, and I will meet you back here when you're coming up to your last stitch. Right, so here we are back for that very last set of stitches. Of course, I've already done the V stitch into the last placement, so now it's a case of just joining it to the top of our very first V stitch. So for this one, I chain 1, then I come across, go under the first V of the first double crochet, put a loop through and slip stitch, hook over, slip stitch again, pull up to close, and then again pull it out. Don't have to worry about hiding that one as easily as the brown. So now all we're going to do is sew in our ends however you feel like doing it, and then meet me back here to learn how to do the lavender stems. Right, so now it's time to grab your favourite lavender shade, and we are going to pop a slip knot on our hook. Now this whole section is to do with chaining and slip stitching. That is all we are doing for this entire round. Oh help. Right, so to start off with, we're going to pop our hook through a V stitch where that chain 1 is, okay, and you're just going to pop it straight through, pull up your yarn and slip stitch it. Okay, pull that nice and tight. Now we are going to start on the flower. So for this one we are going to chain 5, 4 and 5. Once you have your chain 5, you're going to count back down to find the very first chain. You're going to pop your hook through and do a slip stitch, and that will close off the first part of our lavender. We're going to then repeat the process again. So we're going to chain up 5, once you have your chain of 5, you're going to count back down, find that very first chain, pop your hook in and slip stitch to close. Doesn't look like much yet, does it? But keep going, trust the process. We're now going to do it a 3rd time. Chain 5, count back, pop your hook in and slip stitch to close. I'm going to do it another time. Chain 5, count back, pop your hook through, pull up your yarn, a slip stitch to close. So now you've got 4, one more time, going up. So chain 5, come back down to the bottom of your chain, pop your hook through, pull up your yarn and slip stitch. Right, so now we have 5. That is 4 going up one side, 1 for the top, and now we're going to come down the bottom. So you guessed it, we're going to chain 5. We're going to pop our hook into that first chain, pull up a loop and finish it off as a slip stitch. Now it's time to secure it to the other side of our work. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to look at this section running across your peacocks. Okay, we're going to miss this first hole here. We're going to jump in straight into the second hole. Okay, so it's just after the second line down that you can see. Okay, and we're going to go in and we're just slip stitching. Okay, so that then we'll pull that in line with this stitch here. Okay, so now we're going to chain up 5 again. And then pop your hook back into that very first chain, slip stitch closed to create the peacock. Now we are going to come across, and if you see, we've got our first chain that we've worked, the first section we've worked into. We're going to skip past this stitch that's going downwards. We're going to go directly into the next hole, pop your hook through and pull up and slip stitch to close. Now we need to do it another time, so let's chain up 5, complete our peacock by doing our slip stitch into that first chain. Okay, then we're going to look back at our work and we're going to go into the next available hole and slip stitch. Now, yep, you guessed it, chain 5. Come back down to create your last peacock for this row, I believe. Yep, last one. Then we are going to slip stitch into the next available gap just to finish it off, and then one more slip stitch into or around that chain 1. Okay, so then that finishes off the lavender stem. Okay, now we need to move over to our next V so that we can repeat this process again. So what we're going to do is we are going to slip stitch into the back of your stitches. Okay, so just, or into the back of the chain, depending on how you feel. So we're going to chain 1, sorry, slip stitch 1, slip stitch 2, and I like to put a third slip stitch in, and that will be in the top of the first double crochet of your V-stitch. Now, you guessed it, we are going to slip stitch into that V-stitch. Now it's time to start chaining up again and making this your next stem, I should say. Okay, so you ready? Chain 5. Slip stitch to the first, chain, chain 5, and repeat this process until you have 5 peacocks. So that's chain 5 and slip stitch into the first chain. Chain 5, slip stitch into the first. Right, so we have our 5 there. Now for our 6th. Now to anchor it down, we skip that first gap and we go into the second gap with a slip stitch. And then we chain 5 again and create our next peacock. 5, slip stitch into the first, chain, then we anchor it down in the next available gap. Where am I? So we've done this one, so we're now coming into this one. Chain 5, stitch into the first chain, slip stitch into the next available gap on the stem, chain 5, slip stitch into the first chain, and then a slip stitch into the last available gap. Okay, so it'll look like that. And then of course we slip stitch back into our V-stitch. So how'd you find it? Okay, now is the case of just repeating this step all of the way around. So in every V-stitch you are going to put your, what are we going to call these, your clusters of peacocks. There we go, clusters of peacocks. I don't know if that's a technical term, if that's the appropriate term, or if it's just a poppy term, and I've not seen them stacked clusters, whatever. Right, but you're going to put this in each of these V's all the way around. I will be popping a timestamp underneath that will take you to the end, that will set you up at the end of this first one, so that all you'll need is my little voice telling you to slip stitch in the back of the stitches along the chain, and then of course into the V, and then of course doing our stacked peacocks, going up and then coming back down again. Alright, so I will meet you back here when you get to your last, or when you finished your last lavender stem. Right, so this is actually a darker purple rather than lavender, as it turned out my little ball of lavender wasn't enough. Don't panic, as you've seen at the beginning of the video, all the yarn details and quantities were written right at the beginning on screen. Right, so you've done your very last lavender stem. Okay, and just come in and slip stitch as we normally do to the V stitch. Then to finish off, we are going to slip stitch across the stem, across the chains in the back loop only. Okay, for a count of 3, and then what I like to do is I will just slip stitch it to the base of the very first lavender stem. Okay, hook over, chain up 1, pull up your yarn, cut it off, and then of course hide in your ends. Now the choice is yours as to how you do it. I'm going to thread mine up and down my first stem. Okay, now that is it. That is your little lavender section all made. Now the next section is basically folding it up to turn it into a little bouquet, and all we do is we fold it in half, but you put the front layer just slightly below the top layer. So I've lined mine up, the top layer with the top section of the brown. Okay, then you're going to turn it over, fold your first edge up to the middle, then your second edge up to the middle. I always do it a little bit over, because then when it comes to grabbing your yarn or your ribbon or whatever you've chosen to tie it off with, you can, I'll just do it quickly with this to show you, spin it round, and of course tie your bow, and then as it relaxes this will pop out slightly to hold your bow on. Okay, so when finished it will look hopefully something like this, a little cutie. And then of course if you want to use it, you've just got to slide off the bow and then open it up, and you have of course, whoop, there we go, your cup holder there. Right, that is it for me for today. I really hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Please leave a comment in the comment section down below, and also don't forget, send me photographs so that I can show off your work on a future Whips, Bits and Chat. Right, that is it for me for today. I'll see you all really soon. So please remember, stay chilled, stay happy and keep crafting. Goodbye everybody.